Okay, I think we get started and we can let everyone dial in as they like. I know there's a few people bringing their lunch along to today's session, so I know they'll be dialing in as we go. But welcome everybody to the Scrunch 2023 CMO panel. And we have three ultra impressive CMOs on the call and on the panel with us today. So I am so thrilled to be able to share their experience and wisdom and insights when it comes to marketing in 2023, but also forward looking to 2024 as well. So let's kick into things. A little bit of housekeeping. We will mute everyone for the duration of the panel, and then we'll open it up to audience questions at the end. But please feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go, because as I said, we have three very impressive women on the call today. So if we can pick their brains, that is absolutely sensational. So let's just start off by doing a little bit of an introduction. So first up, we have the fabulous Ashton. Ashton is a seasoned marketing professional with a passion for building brands through the art of powerful storytelling. Most recently, Ashton has been at the helm of Gathar, bringing their private chef and catering marketplace to a global stage with the support of their US co-founder, Curtis Stone. While she has recently hung up her Gathar apron, Ashton's also the queen of puns, just in case we don't cover that in the session. She's still cooking up her next big move in the world of marketing, and we can't wait to hear more about that. So having spent a significant portion of her career in the startup ecosystem, Ashton has honed her skills as a high-level thinker, creative problem solver, and is known for her ability to adapt and pivot, and excels at connecting ambitious business goals to actionable outcomes on an individual level. In Ashton's own words, she drives positive influence across key areas of the team, brand, and growth, making her a dynamic force in the world of marketing and an invaluable presence today on our CMO panel event. So thank you so much, Ashton. I cannot wait to hear from you.
Thanks, Danny. I'm going to get you to introduce me on every call.
That can be my new job. I'm very excited about that. Hype girl. And next up, we have Stephanie. So Stephanie is a seasoned digital, e-commerce and marketing senior leader known for her expertise in driving the growth of direct-to-consumer brands through a combination of performance-driven and creative strategies. With an impressive track record spanning the last 8 years, Stephanie has successfully nurtured two prominent Australian businesses to become leaders in their respective niches. And Sand and Sky and Bellabox, we all know those names. In addition, she played a pivotal role in the digital transformation of the iconic retail brand kikki.K, another amazing brand we all know. One of Stephanie's most notable achievements is co-creating and launching Sand and Sky, which has gone on to become one of Australia's most globally acclaimed and award-winning skincare brands. I have their clay mask myself at home. Clearly a lover of data and results, a simple browse of her LinkedIn profile will blow you away at what she's been able to achieve for every brand that she has touched as a marketer. Stephanie's wealth of knowledge and experience makes her a valuable addition to today and any team to drive digital growth and success. And we couldn't be more thrilled to have Stephanie on the panel today. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. That's such a brilliant introduction.
Well, you're a brilliant woman, so easy. And next up, we have Alana. Alana is an accomplished C-suite marketing leader with an impressive track record of over 19 years of proven experience, spanning diverse industries, including retail, travel, beauty, and the not-for-profit sector, working for companies including Luxury Escapes, Shaver Shop, Priceline, and more. With a wealth of experience, Alana's core strengths lie in strategic leadership, unwavering customer centricity, sharp business acumen, and effective people management. Alana boasts a comprehensive skill set that encompasses marketing and brand management, media and advertising, communications, PR, digital, data-driven marketing, events, retail, and commerce. Her diverse experience equips her to tackle a wide array of marketing challenges and opportunities. recently finishing up at the helm of Luxury Escapes, a business that has certainly had to navigate huge upheaval in the last few years. We can't wait to hear from you today, Alana. So grateful for you being on the panel. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you. And absolutely, you can do my intro for everything going forward because that's a really lovely and warm welcome.
No, and again, as I said, you three are so impressive, have had very impressive marketing careers. So grateful again. I really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom and insights with the Scrunch community today. So I thought a nice way to start, yes, they have been very impressive introductions, but there's always a backstory, right? So I would love to, from each of you, just get a sense. So the Scrunch community is made up of marketers in all stage of their journeys. And, you know, a lot of them are aspiring to be a CMO one day in their career. So I'd actually love to hear from each of you how you were able to get to that place in your career. So I might do a bit of around the room. So Ashton, maybe if you want to kick us off, how did you go from, you know, thinking about marketing as a career all the way through to CMO?
Yeah, awesome. I will happily kick us off. So I guess my journey is probably, I'm gonna loosely say a 10-year one. So straight out of uni, starting in a specialist role as an SEO copywriter, which 10 years ago basically meant stuffing lots of pages full of lots of keywords. Very different to the SEO we know and love today. So started as a specialist, moved into more of a generalist role as a marketing executive. That's kind of, you know, one of those roles where you get to, you know, touch on everything a little bit and sort of also find out where your strengths lie, what you like, what you don't like, you know. Oh, I really love social, or, you know, events really isn't my jam. So a nice generalist feel to kind of guide your next move. Then narrowing back into specialist role within the sort of social content area, and then generalizing out again. So I always say sort of, you know, big bang, big crunch, big bang, big crunch, generalizing out into a brand role, and then a little bit of time spent in agency. So I guess it's, you know, ranging between specialist, generalist, in-house and agency, and then ultimately kind of starting to take on those heads of roles, you know, head of content, you know, head of brand, like that kind of area, into account director, and then into my CMO opportunity with Gathar, where I have just finished up. And about 12 months ago, I took on a dual role with Gathar, which was CMO and general manager, just adding some more letters to the title as well. So I guess that's a, you know, over the journey, it's definitely kind of ranged between narrowing in and broadening out that scope, whether it's sort of in-house with specific brands or at an agency working across a number of brands. But I guess the common theme has been an undercurrent of leadership and management right from very, very early on. So I definitely didn't know that CMO was, you know, it wasn't the end goal when I started out. It was probably only in the last few years that that's, you know, an opportunity or a door that started to be visible down the hallway and that I wanted to open. But something that has sort of stayed true all the way through is that leading teams, leading people, and sort of getting into management really early.
I love that so much. And it's really interesting, the journey that you described, because I think sometimes, you know, it's hard to see the end in sight. Sometimes it's hard to know what that big end goal, but there is always value in experience. There's always value in trying a bit of everything, being a specialist, being a generalist, being on both sides, being in leadership positions. Like all of that is what equips you for that end goal.
That's it. There's no sort of one pathway. And also, you know, I probably had different ambitions and different goals along the way. You know, I want to do this next, and then I want to do this, and I think maybe one day I'd like to do this. I think it's important not to get too wedded to the end goal or the title or the, you know, no, it must look like this or it must be like that, because like you say, it's really the skills and the type of work that you're doing along the way that will equip you for those bigger opportunities down the track.
I love that. That is amazing. So let's throw to you, Stephanie. What was your career path like moving into the CMO role?
Yeah, I think there's some commonality with what Ashton just said in terms of being able to demonstrate leadership and management skills and team management skills early on, and always grow in that field. So I won't repeat anything that she just said because it was similar for me. And yeah, I think the agility of your trajectory. Like from my perspective, I worked across 3 countries, across various industries. I started in travel, then I was into the equivalent. That was a long time ago, but of what Catch.com would be today. And then I moved to beauty, and then stationery, and now the sleep industry. And I think this agility is really helping you to grow your skills, your expertise, but being agile enough to demonstrate that, you know, there's nothing you can't do, basically. And you inspire confidence through your expertise and your can-do attitude and fast learning skills. And something that I realized pretty early on is when you're on this trajectory, whether you wanted it or not, when you make those big jumps in your career, there's always this moment of imposter syndrome. And my big learning was like, if you've been promoted, look back why, and use those reasons, those achievements to trust yourself. And maybe today you're in the dark and you're doubting, but trust your value will always shine. And today, maybe it's not clear because you are in a challenging time where you want to achieve something and you're not getting through, or the context is really hard and you're not understanding everything. But trust that you have achieved great things, and this greatness will serve you very early on. It may not shine now and you need it now, but it will shine and will serve you. So that's something that really helped me to take those big steps, while sometimes it was a bit daunting.
I think that is phenomenal. And it's, you know, I think something that spans no matter what industry you're in, what career you're in, what job role you're in, you're absolutely spot on. Sometimes that imposter syndrome does creep in. I love that reflection. Reflect on why you were actually given that opportunity, and have a little bit of faith and have a little bit of trust in yourself.
And trust the future. The future will give you the opportunity for your value to shine. Your value will shine, no matter if it's when you want it to shine, but it will shine.
That's gorgeous. I love it. I absolutely love it. Alana, would love to get your story from baby marketer to CMO. How did it go?
Look, again, really similar story to both Ashton and Stephanie. But you know, my marketing career really began working Bunnings, Mitre 10, in-store promotions, eventing, and I guess learning while I worked full-time through uni that, you know, maybe this was actually what I wanted to do, as opposed to doing the journalism media degree that I was studying at uni, that, you know, maybe marketing was the better side for me. And so I kind of worked through a number of different roles. Predominantly my journey has been retail. So I've spent a lot of time in the retail space and kind of growing up through there with different stints in not-for-profit and things like that. But I think, you know, kind of growing up in marketing and doing all the different areas. So I've been very lucky that I went in as a marketing coordinator and, you know, got to experience both B2B and B2C marketing. So for me, you know, I talk about customer centricity and being, you know, really attuned to what the customer wants. But quite often in most of the businesses I've been in, and the customer's been multiple customers. It's been supplier partners, it's been different retailers, it's been the actual end customer that's purchasing the product or visiting the shopping centre or whatever it might be as well. So I think I've got that natural curiosity that you know, has stood me well, both from a leadership perspective and really understanding what makes the people in my team tick and what they need to be successful, which in turn helps garner successful teams. But it also, I think, you know, because I'm naturally curious around, you know, the categories I work in, or, you know, what the customers are doing, what are the insights, what's the overall industry and the wider industries and things doing as well. I think, you know, lean into wanting to understand the why and wanting to know the know. And, you know, if you don't have an end plan in sight, that's totally okay. Sometimes that end plan will start to come out for you as you kind of move through. So no step in getting more experience is a bad step. You know, some people might think it's a side step, but again, that will only round out your skills and what you're looking for as you kind of then step through, which for me is how I've kind of gained experience across, you know, kind of all of the facets of marketing along the way. And, you know, have loved every minute of it. Some parts I'm really good at, some parts not brilliant at, but, you know, it's rounded me out and I've got a really good understanding of how it all comes together.
I love that. And I really love the comment about the multiple customers. I think that that's a really complex part of marketing, that it's not just, you know, one person that we're typically talking to, and it depends on what industry you're in, what product, what service. But you're right, it actually extends well far beyond the customer or even the supplier, but to your team as well. It's interesting that, you know, marketing takes on so many different facets, and being able to, I guess, have the marketer's mindset of understanding what people are going through and how to connect with them and how to develop them and how to solve their problems is actually useful well beyond just selling product.
Yeah, 100%.
So good. That's incredible. So let's move into some industry trends. And I know the three of you are in all different industries, so this is going to be really interesting. Ashton, let's start with you again. So what industry trends, obviously marketing related, have you observed in 2023? And maybe just highlight the ones that have probably had the biggest impact on your personal marketing in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm going to zoom out and talk about maybe a larger macro trend, which is, the economy. Yes, the cosy lives, the old cosy lives, the cost of living crisis. I think that, you know, that's the greatest trend of all, is the kind of economic environment in Australia and how that's had an impact on buying behavior. So from what I've experienced this year, that's meant the need for more trust building with customers than ever before. So, you know, it's always been important. You know, you got to build trust with your customers, no matter who that is. If it's an e-com customer or, you know, a B2B customer, a client, or, you know, what have you. But I think it's come down to customers are much more willing to shop around than they have been before. So to get the best deal, to get multiple quotes, you know, the customers themselves are putting in a lot more time to kind of assess their options and really pick and choose the brands that they're going to work with or purchase from, meaning that there's been a lot more effort required from the brand's perspective to win both their hearts and their wallets. So I've really experienced that trend, and it has meant a lot more of that trust building, awareness kind of activity, where in the past, you know, especially working for startups, lean budgets, you really do focus a lot of your effort on the conversion activity, you know, getting those inquiries, getting those sales. That's the most important part. But just focusing on the bottom of the funnel isn't working. It's never a holistic or, you know, long-term kind of strategy, but it's just not working the way that it used to. People are spending a lot more time in that consideration phase than I've kind of seen in the past. And that's also meant, you know, a bit of a budget swing, borrowing from those bottom of funnel, real, you know, hard hitting conversion tactics into really emphasizing that consideration phase, doing a lot more comparison ads, a lot more sort of communication of value, you know, those customer CVPs, really bringing it back to, you know, the why should you buy from us, or why should you work from us? So I think that that's been the biggest trend that I've seen, and I'm also seeing a lot of other brands out there doing it, is probably that comparison, and, you know, why should you pick us? A lot more of that, you know, brand battle, I guess you'd say.
No, I think that's really interesting. And I love your comment around that, you know, startups tend to focus a lot on the conversion activities. And I think that, you know, sometimes that can be largely due to, say, if you're working for the founder of the business who's working to sales, revenue targets, reporting into boards, shareholders, often it can be hard to defend brand building tactics. Have you had any success with how you approach those conversations?
Yeah, look, it's really challenging, and it's probably not just an isolated startup problem. You know, when people just want to sort of focus on the raw numbers and that attribution and that ROI, I think that there's, you know, there's a way that you need to sort of sell in the whole picture, and kind of the proof is in the pudding when you just do the same activity again and again and expect different results, that's just not going to work. So when you're working for a business that has, big growth targets, we want more inquiries, we want more sales, we want to achieve X, Y, and Z, but you're not sort of doing anything different, you're just focusing on that bottom of funnel all the time, it will prove that that's not, that's not growth, that's just kind of keeping the wheels turning. So I think that showing what that full funnel looks like and showing that, yes, there's a different metric at each of these different stages. There's a different metric at the awareness stage. There's a different metric at the consideration stage. There's a different metric at the, conversion stage, and kind of setting up those three different measures of success. It's not just about, it can't just be about ROI or return on ad spend. There has to be those different measures of success all the way along the journey.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think that's a really important conversation as well when brands outsource their marketing to agencies. I think you're right. The conversation does need to be elevated. Yes, sales are important. Sales will always be important, but it does need to be elevated all the way back to that brand awareness piece.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it can sort of come down to a little bit cut and dry sometimes when you're talking about, B2C or, e-com or product. It comes back to sales. Sales are the only thing that matters. But when you sort of look at it in the lens of, a B2B client or partnerships, a lot more room is kind of given around those conversations and those, those functions, because that you can't just expect a big partner or a big B2B company, you can't just expect that to be an instant transaction. It takes time, relationship building, romancing. Sometimes it can take months, sometimes it can take years to kind of land one of those big clients. On a much more, small scale, it is the same kind of dance that you do with an e-com or a B2C customer. It's just a lot shorter, but you still need to introduce yourself and do the dance and, explain who you are and romance them a little bit in order for them to kind of convert into a customer. So it's funny that on the, the big value customers and the big value deals are given all of that leeway and all of that space. But, at the bottom end, it's kind of all about quantity over quality. But at the end of the day, it's still trust building.
I love that. I think we all need romance strategies in our marketing plan.
Customer romance expert.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Amazing. So Stephanie, would love to hear your thoughts on any key marketing trends that you've observed this year that have really affected your strategies and decision making.
Well, we actually are in the deep of what Ashton just described, and we've just finished a big branding campaign. And in terms of convincing, from my experience across various companies, the conversation is just so different depending on the level of profitability of the company. And working directly with founders or CEO, I know how much we can be passionate and educate them and all that, but it's always a big investment. And even when they want to be the most patient, they always look at the bottom of the P&L. So yeah, like in terms of, your community thinking about their career and the type of company or the type of, CEO or founders or marketing directors they want to work with, like those topics are going to be treated very differently depending on the financial health of the company. But just being at the end of a big exercise like this, it has been working. And when we all gathered preparing for this chat just before it started, we were talking about Black Friday, and it definitely impacted our Black Friday. So it wasn't direct outcome, but we could see we had more people in the funnel, and we had done the romance work just a few months ago, and it paid off when people were ready to buy. So yeah, definitely something that has been driven our strategies and investment a lot. And then maybe to add something else, I think it's something that it's still going. Also, in terms of advertisement and the CPC industry, the cookie deprecation and all that, all the social advertising was really under the radar over the last year. And we could manage to get some growth. And, you know, in terms of trends that I see, it's one that I thought was going, but it's actually still very strong. It's still this organic style of communication. Like, you know, when I started working on social advertising long time ago, it was really the bread and butter, the testimonials and no polished content. And then over the last 2-3 years, I was like, oh, actually polished content seem to be, you know, like have its space, and is it taking over? And recently, like, because we are investing a lot in this area, recently we saw that no, it's still very, very strong. And now it's this full scope of content creation that we're investing our time and some of our money in, as in covering the full scope of content creation, from the most polished to the most unpolished and very organic shot on your mobile phone.
I absolutely love that comment, because as an agency who does a lot of work in the influencer space, I'm always surprised by brands who don't want the unpolished content. You know, they're leveraging influencers, but when it comes back a little bit too unpolished, they kind of push for rework and reshoots. And I always think I'd love for people to be a little bit more open to testing all of the stages. So exactly what you said, polished to unpolished, and testing each of the stages to really actually uncover what drives the most return.
Yeah.
Still awesome.
Going strong.
Yeah, no, I love that comment. That's amazing. Alana, what about you? Have you seen any key marketing trends this year that have impacted your strategies or decision making?
Look, I think, and again, it has been cost of living that I think has probably driven two different marketing strategies, in that you've got those that aren't necessarily as impacted by what's going on in an economic sense, and so they're kind of living as they would. So from a travel perspective, they are still doing their bucket list trips, they're still going and doing the things they didn't get to do through COVID. And then you've got another cohort of customers that are literally saving every dollar. Some of them are going without other things to travel, but for them, they're very much around you know, it's around value, and, you know, how do they get the best possible deal? How do they look at, you know, all inclusive? How do they look at those types of things? So, you know, they're not going to get a shock when they, you know, are leaving their holiday and they're discovering that, you know, the drinks by the pool possibly have hit them a little harder than they thought. So I think, you know, from that side of things, there's the different messaging in that you want to capture, you know, the retirees and those that are living their best lives and can afford to and want to go and do all of the things that they didn't get to do for the 2.5 years that they couldn't travel. And then it's how do you actually, I guess, really start to make sure that your content and everything that's being pushed out is actually showing that, you know, they may not be going and doing the Europe trip, but it may be going to Bali, or if they can't afford to go to Bali, it's doing the weekend away in, you know, Queensland, or if they can't do Queensland, it's, you know, doing a staycation. So it's how do you actually help people shop up or shop down depending on what their current situation is, and still make it feel like it's an affordable treat that they can still go and do.
And it just goes back to the comment you made at the beginning of the session as well, about understanding each type of customer and creating a solution and experience for them. And to your point, though, making it still exciting. Like, it doesn't matter if you're buying top end or bottom end, like, it is still solving your problem and making you feel amazing about that choice.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. I love it. So thinking about our marketing for this year, would love any call outs around your favorite brand campaign. So this could be one that you've done in-house, or it could just be one that you've seen out there in the ether. Ashton, anything that comes to mind for you, any brand campaigns that you've loved?
It's a really recent one. And I think, you know, everyone will agree, but I loved the Mean Girls you know, the Mean Girls homage from Walmart. So when they sort of recreated the Mean Girls with the characters and the ads and how it was like a series of videos. Obviously, I hate these words. It went viral. You know, those trigger words for all of us here, I'm sure. But I really loved it. So it was for Walmart's Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So, you know, but it's a hard one because it's, you know, driving awareness and, you know, sales for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but in essence, it's just Walmart being Walmart and, you know, attaching themselves to, you know, the Mean Girls brand. And I think it just did a really wonderful job of tapping into nostalgia at the right time in a very authentic and legitimately funny way. Like it did not feel like it was, you know, too forced, and it didn't feel like it didn't even feel like it was that commercial, really. Like it honestly, to me, it felt like they did it for the joy of doing it. You know, it's like there's this great idea that somebody's just run with, and I'm sure it's paid off in spades.
I love that. That's so good. And it is interesting, isn't it? I think it can be a bit of a risk when you're aligning yourself to something a little bit nostalgic. Especially, I think in this day and age, it's really hard because there's so many times where movies of the past are a little controversial these days. There are things said and you've got to be super careful about it. But I think you're right. It really executed it in a really unforced, really relatable way.
Yeah, the execution was just flawless. And I think it's somebody obviously, or a group of people, whoever's behind the campaign, they obviously just really felt good about the idea. That really comes through. It didn't feel like, you know, a brand trying to attach itself to another brand or a subculture. It just came across as, we're doing this because it's really funny and it's really smart.
Yeah, you know, almost like every brand that attached themselves to Barbie this year.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of had it was the antithesis of the Barbie effect. And it's like, honestly, the more Barbie, the better for me this year. But it had, you know, it was quite different. It did not come across as that commercial, even though it was a commercial. So
Yeah,
funny.
I love that. That's amazing. Stephanie, what about you? Any brand campaigns
So one of the big trends we are embracing is AI. And there's an AI-driven campaign that caught my attention. It's for Visit Korea, the Visit Korea year. So the player is really like surprising. But I was just watching YouTube and I got this ad. So this ad is about taking you through iconic places in Korea, but through the lens of as if a famous painter would have painted the same scene. And it's AI generated. And I was like, wow. Not only was it entertaining, I always keep on my YouTube ads, but when there's one, you know, that I'm like, oh, maybe, you know, either I enjoy as a marketer, you watch the good ones. I stuck to the end and I was like, I actually want to go to Korea. It was so cool. So they use, you know, impressionists, they use like Van Gogh and Matisse, Cézanne and all that. And I was like, wow, that's really a good piece. And you can also, you know, appreciate the creative, out of the box, innovative side that has the power to create a halo effect on your branding campaign, because it's going to create a bit of word of mouth. So yeah, I found this one a little bit out of the box and it caught my attention for this reason.
It's really interesting. I love that point as well around, you know, and look, I know it's the goal, I'm sure, of every marketing campaign is to actually be so good that other people would share it. But that is really interesting when something catches your attention so much that it actually inspires you to share it with other people. That's like the holy grail of an ad, isn't it? Amazing. Alana, anything that stood out to you?
I really struggled to think about how to narrow this down, so I'm glad I've gone last, because I've been sitting here being like, which one do I choose? But I think for me, it's probably the brands that were associated with the Matildas during the World Cup. So I think two or potentially even three that really stood out for me that I thought were a beautiful job of bringing brand and kind of that sponsorship, but also kind of the inspirational side of women's sport. You know, Optus Sport, Combank, Cadbury all did really beautiful ads that kind of captured the sentiment of what the Matildas kind of did for for Australians across the country, but I think really kind of brought that home in really meaningful and purposeful brand ads as well, which are ones that have kind of stuck in the back of my head for the last few months.
Yeah, that is such a great point. They were all like really filled with integrity. You know, you really felt like they were actually just supporting the mission the Matildas were on rather than advertising their services.
Yeah. So it was, I think it was a really beautiful like integration together, as opposed to it being, these guys are doing really well, so let's slap our brand on it and make it, make ourselves look good. It was a genuine, I think they did a really beautiful job of making it a genuine, meaningful message that kind of went out there, which was nice.
Incredible. I love it. Now let's move away from the creative lens of marketing for a minute and talk tech. And Stephanie, I love that you mentioned AI, because I feel like everything I have read in the last 12 months has had the word AI in it. But let's think about technology and data more holistically. So Ashton, we'll start with you again. Emerging technologies, AI, AR, VR, blockchain, are any of these actually making their way on a practical level into your marketing strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI, in the form of, everyone's favorite sidekick, ChatGPT, as a buddy on the side. I will sort of explain a little bit how I and the team used it, but I would also say, like, I had some sort of grand plans of using more AR in terms of creating imagery for Gathar. So that's one thing I didn't sort of get off the ground, but I kind of think about sometimes, where Gathar was an interesting model. So it's a marketplace for private chefs, and creating content was always really tricky for us because these are people's private events. It's their birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, and it's really hard to send photographers or videographers along and sort of capture people's private moments. And there wasn't actually as much kind of user-generated content as you might think, which is, it's a blessing and a curse, but it's the fact that people were so present in the moment that they're actually enjoying the experience and they're going really phones down, which is beautiful. And that's what you want. But at the same time, it means no content. So I really wanted to play with the idea of using AR to kind of create a lot of visual content, photos, static imagery and video around the Gathar sort of offering. So, a 30th birthday party on a private rooftop in Melbourne with an Italian shared feast, so specific, but I really wanted to kind of put all of those different variables together and actually create that content to visually explain to people what the experience looked like, but without the, I guess, cost and logistics and difficulty of creating all of that content IRL. So that's something I didn't get off the ground, but great. That would have been a great user case. But just quickly on AI, I think, for me personally, I used it on a lot of rinse and repeat tasks as, wearing two hats, CMO, GM, also not having a lot of resources in terms of time, people, etc. I was really using ChatGPT for, tasks like supporting on customer support scripts, troubleshooting and problem solving for our customer support team. That was a really big one. Localizing the spelling and grammar, because obviously we're in the Australian market and the US, so making sure everything was localized. And a lot of tasks that are time sensitive but not, I guess, important enough to kind of need my hourly rate attached to them. So things like social captions, standard reporting, things that I can absolutely do and that I actually love doing, but it's just not worth, the time and effort for those kind of BAU rinse and repeat things. And I found that the more I was feeding into ChatGPT, the more it kind of felt like an extension of my own thinking. So utilizing it a lot and kind of feeding it a lot of information and helping it learn really kind of made it a very valuable resource. When you hear a lot of people go, oh, it's not as good. It's not as good as what I could do. It's like, no, but if it can get you 70% of the way there, then that's just saved you a lot of time, and then you can sort of make it your own. So I don't, I'd advise people, if anyone's kind of feeling very against ChatGPT, it is just a it's just another tool. It's the same as, you know, when we started using Google to look things up. It's just another tool to kind of help you along the way, not to do the work for you.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, it's like the blank page effect. You know, when you're staring at a blank page, it's like, oh my God, I just can't get started. I know what I need to do, but I just can't get the first word down. And so sometimes going, you know, putting in the prompts, having someone come back, you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted, but I know exactly how to get it
That's
there
it.
now.
It helps you narrow it down. You just like,
Yeah.
and you can word vomit to it as well, which is so great. And that's what I really encourage the team to do, because, you know, they're just, you know, oh, we've got, you know, a particular chef and I really don't know how to kind of explain this to him. Just like, just throw it into ChatGPT. Just say, I want to say this. How do I say that in a way that's not going to make him yell at me?
Chefs, yes, they're an interesting bunch.
That's it. So how do I say this in chef language?
Chef language, I love that. And I think you're right. The information you put in and the training of it is just as important as understanding, you know, what you can get out of it. So it's a really good tip. I love that. Amazing. Stephanie, any technology, any data that you've used this year that has changed things for you?
So AI and efficiencies, exactly the same as Ashton. We're also looking at AI helping us to extend our value proposition, but I can't get too much into that because obviously
We'll watch this space. Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at AI for efficiencies, but also for to elevate our value proposition. And then for us, it's been such a big year in terms of tech stack revamp. So we have onboarded, you know, like UX platform to look precisely at what people are doing on the website. We have migrated our email marketing system as well. So yeah, like for us in terms of the tech stack, it's been really solidifying and rebuilding the fundamentals. Yeah, but yeah, nothing crazy innovative, but I think it's really important. The company was on the trajectory of, you know, like high growth, being very opportunistic, and just after this like bottom of the funnel growth, we added the brand and we've solidified our tech stack. So a good healthy tech stack is really important, and we've been working on that.
I think that is so important, because I think you're right. You know, it's very easy sometimes to see the big headlines, the innovations, the exciting stuff, but you actually need to take care of the basics and the fundamentals first, because that's where you get the gains from optimization. You know, if you can see what's actually going on in the full customer journey, then you can really start to optimize things. So it becomes we can still grow without having the giant, amazing idea, but we can be incrementally growing across all layers of the funnel.
And also the data is informing your vision. So without the right data, your vision and your end goal can't be accurate.
Yeah, I love that. That's incredible. It's really important. Alana, any tech or data innovations, ideas that have impacted your marketing strategy this year?
Look, probably really similar to both Stephanie and Ashton. AI efficiencies in content creation, deal development, everything like that has been, you know, a big part of the year. And I think, you know, across multiple businesses, it is how do you use it for good, and not that it's a replacement for your copywriters and your editors and things like that, because it's absolutely not. But how does it actually enhance the work that they're doing to ensure that they're doing more of the creative stuff and not having to just sit there and do the monotonous caption writing? They can actually just kind of get in there and tweak what's there. And then I think, again, it's as businesses have grown so quickly, I think efficient tech stacks are probably waning a little bit, and also how businesses are actually able to really get into data as well. So I think some businesses have so much data sitting in the business, but they haven't actually navigated their way to pull the data out into an effective use of, you know, how their teams use it, what do they actually understand of their customer, and how they really drive it. So I think that's been a big thing for this year. And I think, again, going into next year, it's just how do businesses harness what they've actually got at their fingertips, so then again they can start, you know, playing with the shiny and new toys as well.
Yeah, and it is really interesting, isn't it? Sometimes I feel like we want to avoid that because it feels like taking a step back, or sometimes it feels like if we're not doing the next big exciting thing, if we're actually going and back and revisiting, it feels like we're not doing anything, but it's actually no, sometimes you do need to take that step back to take a giant leap forward.
Yeah. And it's like how you sell it internally. I always say we need to go slow first to go faster after that. And I think I repeat that like almost 2 or 3 times a week. Because the marketing function, often people think we're slow, but we're slow at the beginning. But if we are slow in a good manner, then we're gonna go at the speed of light. But if we just rush into everything, at the end, you're gonna be much slower on the finish line.
You're so right. It's, why isn't marketing sort of looked at with the same lens as dev, right? It's like if a dev says, oh yeah, I can do this quick fix, but it's, going to be terrible, but if you give me sort of, 8 weeks, I can build a much better solution. There's kind of never any, oh, of course, it's mystery, it's code, it's ones and zeros, but there's always the perception that marketing's just, slap a picture here or send an email out there. It's like, there is, I actually having spent a lot of time working in alignment with dev teams, I see so much similarity between the processes that you step through within dev and marketing to kind of get to the solution that you need to build.
It's so interesting too, and you just touched on an interesting point as well. Like, I feel like marketing can be super undervalued. Like, how hard is it to post on Instagram, right? But it's actually, there's so much complexity in marketing. We've talked about technology, we've talked about customer journeys, we've talked about understanding the problem. Like, there's full suite of, what message needs to go out at what time, what channel, that we haven't even talked about marketing channels in this session today. And I feel like often marketers are expected to be an expert in every one of those disciplines. And again, with this lens of, oh, let's just do that, just make that happen. But you're right, when it comes to dev or something like that, it's a little bit mysterious. Like, oh yes, that must take a lot of time and a lot of money, so we'll just walk away from that. Interesting. So now before we're gonna talk all day, I know. So before we open up to audience questions, I've got one last one for you. And I really wanted to talk about this because we've talked about customer experience a few times just organically. So in the customer-centric world, how are we enhancing the customer experience through our marketing strategies? That's the topic I really wanted to talk about. So Ashton, for you, how do you connect marketing to customer experience?
Yeah, I guess something really specific that I've looked into this year was getting a lot more feedback from customers. And the example I'll give is on the inquiry form at Gathar. For a time, we actually ran a couple of extra fields, which were asking, what buying stage the customer was in nice language, obviously, but it was, are you just dreaming, just looking around, or, starting to weigh up my options, I'm planning, or no, I'm ready to book. So asking what actual buying stage that they were at, and then asking if for their comms preference as well. So SMS, phone call, or email. And this was completely optional fields. And I was really blown away by the volume of customers who gave us that information. It's, you don't want to add more barriers to your form. And again, completely optional. But I would say upwards of 70% of people actually told us what stage they were at in their buying journey and how they would prefer us to communicate with them. And that was really interesting because I think that just by them giving us that information, not only does that sort of help the customer care team kind of prioritize and personalize the interactions with that customer. For example, if they know that they're just dreaming or browsing, it's a much softer kind of conversation than, cool, all right, you're ready to book, tell me the details, let's get this thing done for you. But it also, I think it gave the customer that perception of, oh, this brand is actually, they actually want to know where I'm at. They're trying to meet me halfway. So that was a really interesting kind of test that we ran and gave us some great insights into, a bit of a status check of where our customers were at. But that's, I really enjoyed running that one. So I think just getting more feedback from the customers and not making the assumption of like, oh, all of our customers are ready to buy, obviously, actually trying to get that sort of data. Like Stephanie said, it's like if you don't have the right data to sort of guide you, then it's, how do you know where you're going? So that was a really cool example for me of enhancing the customer experience.
I love that. So as somebody who's been in sales and marketing for 20 years, I actually hate sales and marketing sometimes because, you're being sold to. And, it's really funny, like, aggressive cold emails, people calling when I've emailed, or like, it is really funny, like that perception of as a customer, I just want to be met where I'm at. But the amount of brands that have asked me that question, like, sometimes you think it's implied, right? I fill out a contact email form. So I'd like to be emailed back. But, you get the phone call or you get, this request or that request. And you think, why aren't more brands just meeting people where they're at or even just asking the question? I think that's
right. Just ask the question. And, it doesn't mean that you as a brand need to change your processes. We know that if you can get someone on the phone, if they're in the right mindset, it's going to probably have a much greater outcome. But at the same time, we were running a customer care team 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It's like most of our customers are also doing their jobs 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So, they might not be able to take phone calls or they might not be able to access their personal emails on their work computer. Or so it's just really important to sort of meet your customers where they are.
I love that. That is awesome. What about you, Stephanie? Thinking about connecting marketing to the customer experience?
So for us, we're very lucky. We have a founder that genuinely and authentically believe in being customer centric, and it takes courage because sometimes it means you can get yourself into like heavy projects. And I'm just gonna take some examples here of what we do at Youfoodz is that we are not afraid of making fast decisions on changing and upgrading our products based on feedback, even if it's developing a new sofa bed because the first version you couldn't put fitted bed sheets on it. And it's a long project, but those decisions are just non-brainers. And it's just fundamental of listening to what the customer service is hearing all day every day, calibrating what matters and what doesn't matter. Because if you have 2 customers out of 10,000, you may not jump on it. But if you have, like a complaint rate or some negative comments that are, more towards 3-5%, you're like, I'm going to address that. And we're very lucky that at Youfoodz, we're just not negotiating with that. And if it means we have to redevelop a product, we just do it. So it's really the fundamentals, but this can really help your marketing in terms of customer longevity and, the customer trusting the brand because we regularly take their feedback on board and we walk the talk.
Yeah, I love that. It's a really interesting thing as well to look at those stats because you're 100% right. If it's only 1 or 2 people, of course, perhaps not worth looking at. But if it's getting into the, nominal percentage numbers, there's probably also a portion of people who aren't saying anything. So if it's getting big enough that you've got a sample size, you can almost go, well, there's probably people that also aren't saying things as well. So it's really worth taking into consideration. What about you, Alana, when it comes to connecting marketing to customer experience?
Look, I think the big one at Luxury Escapes was obviously the change in customer behaviour post-COVID. So as a business, obviously COVID was pretty horrendous for the travel industry as a whole. So how customers were travelling kind of as the borders reopened and as that really opened up last year and this year. Really different to 2019, 2018. There was a lot of confidence that wasn't in customers and a lot of assurance was needed as well. So customers were keen to travel. Luxury Escapes tends to, I guess, the their historical database are customers that are kind of over 50 and, you know, have kind of been with the brand for a long time. But they really wanted that level of assurance around, you know, what they were doing. So most people purchase online. There's a really strong customer service, customer sales team that kind of support that. And normally, you know, you get a really small number of customers that are purchasing online that would call the call centre just to clarify visa, COVID requirements, whatever it might be. But as, you know, we were coming out of COVID, the contact rate was almost like was so high because people were just, they weren't sure and it wasn't clear on the government websites. No one really knew what to do. And as we were doing big pieces of research to understand the shift and what was happening and what were customers looking for and how was it going to work, we could see that there was a real need around face-to-face I guess, confidence in booking. And, you know, they weren't just wanting to book 5 nights in Bali. It was, you know, we want to book 6 weeks in Europe and we want to sit down and talk through that. So the business actually made a huge shift from being an online travel agent to opening a retail store. So that process has probably been in the last 12 months, and that store, the main store, opened in July. And so that was a big shift for the business, but that was actually in direct response to the customer needs and what they were looking for, in that, you know, they love the phone team and they love that, you know, they can jump online and do live chat and they can go on and book what they want. But there was a really strong cohort of customer that wanted to make the trip to actually have that face-to-face conversation with people, which again is different to a lot of businesses tend to go online, but this one went the reverse. But, you know, was absolutely, the decision was made and the investment was made based on what the customer needs were at that point.
Yeah, and just another great example of meeting the customer where they are, you know, like, and it is nice. I think sometimes when we're in creative or tech fields, we always think, you know, go automated, go online, go innovation, but it's like sometimes that just isn't what the people want.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible. Now, look, we've got a couple of chat questions before we wrap up. I know we're getting close to time, so if anyone has a hard stop, just let me know. However, so Jody has just asked, so Stephanie discussed the imposter syndrome that often accompanies professional development. What strategies or factors have personally assisted you in overcoming this feeling and gaining confidence in a new role?
I would say that the first time, and I remember it vividly, the first time when you have the imposter syndrome, you're just like through it, and it's painful and it's uncomfortable, but just persist. And because when this happened to me, I persisted, and then my value shone, you know, when I didn't expect it. I was just powering through. And then I looked back. I had a good circle of friends that were seeing me like, oh my God, I have this huge role and I have to do all those things and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. And they were like, it's just a job. It's just a job. And I couldn't get this message. I was like, what do you mean it's just a job? It's so important. And then, you know, my value finally, you know, like came through in a way that I was valuing it. I was like, oh yes, was a good win. I did good job. And then I was just like, oh, all this time wasted on worrying, where, you know, I was definitely capable. I was just not trusting myself. So I learned a lot from this parameter, as in like this example where I was worried, I proved my value, and I made the commitment that I will always remember it. And now every time I go through this type of phase, I'm like, don't worry too much. You will do something that, you know, like now you're in the dark and you're trying to do something and it's not working, and, you know, you're not getting the feedback you wanted. It will come through at some point. So I think in terms of what was strategies, now I have clear strategies that have gone through that, and it's every time I'm in this period, I'm like, remember that time, trust yourself, you're here because you have a lot of skills, you have a lot of value, and it will shine. So I think it's a good thing that I did at some point, I took a break at some point because after Sun and Sky, I was exhausted. I was like, I need a sabbatical leave. And I just returned back to all the good things I've done. And I made a list. And when I was thinking about, what my next step should be after Sun and Sky, etc., I went back to this list as a powerhouse of self-confidence. And anyone doubting their self in my team or, coaching people, I would be like, make a list of everything you did well and keep it with you. I think this is a good strategy. And as you do that, at some point, you don't need a list anymore.
I love that. That is incredible. Ashton or Alana, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more, with Stephanie. It's like, worrying won't change the outcome. You just got to get in and get it done, sort of feel the fear and do it anyway. Remember all the great things that you've done. You have done hard things. You have achieved these things. You've overcome obstacles in the past and you will do it again. I also like to remind myself, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Sometimes it's, you could lose your job. Okay, what does that look like? Honestly, what, I'll get another one then. What is the worst that could happen? Like Stephanie's friend said, it's just a job. And it's like, we care so much about what we do that's sometimes hard, but you have to remember, in the grand scheme of things, it's like this too shall pass. And on the, making a list of all the wonderful things that you've done, I haven't done this myself, but I've heard a lot about it lately, is actually creating a little bit of a folder with great feedback and, kudos that you have received from your managers and from your peers and from customers, about features that you've built or campaigns that you've run. Just create a little folder of, it's like the anti-imposter syndrome folder. Create a folder of all of that wonderful positive feedback, from people in your life that you need, a little cheer squad. And anytime that you have those self-doubts, just pop open that folder and see all those great words and go, yeah, I was that girl and I am that girl, and I can do whatever the thing is now as well.
I love it. Gorgeous. Anything from you, Alana, or will we jump into the next question?
Look, I'll just ditto everything they said because I'm conscious of time.
No, awesome. And we'll wrap it up. We'll just do one last question and then we will wrap things up because we are now over time. From Nancy, we have, thank you all for your insights. I've found a number of my clients, so she runs a creative agency, have slashed marketing budgets in response to the state of economic environment. So we've all touched on that today. There is no better or more important time to invest in marketing. How would you sell the value of marketing to a medium-sized business at the moment? It is interesting. It is interesting, right? I know, as somebody who runs a marketing agency, when COVID happened, that was exactly the same thing that happened.
Well, marketing can cover a lot of things. And marketing, you can do a lot of free marketing if the financials are not allowing for big investments. When it comes to big investment, my position, and I never worked in an agency, but my position for founders or CEOs I'm working with is always to be truthful and genuine with the financial position of the company. And if there's no butter, if there's no flesh there, I will just be respectful of that and won't push and shift into, like opportunities that are more tactical. But if there's money, then yes, like in this context, I've read a lot of literature in terms of, do you invest or not in a time like ours at the moment? And there are some examples from the past that show that if your category, if people are not stopping spending in your category, go for it and invest. If the level of confidence is low, you may just, slow down a bit. So there are some research and all that, and examples that show, companies that kept on investing, like Airbnb with the big COVID burst they had. They invested in innovation, they invested in brand campaigns, etc., and they they came stronger at the end of it. So yeah, like it depends. There are some arguments to keep on investing even in a critical time like ours.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point, isn't it? Because we've got to remember that there's another side. We do have to come out the other side. So helping clients or brands understand that, you know, perhaps yes, we're taking the throttle off, or perhaps we're not, because we're in a category that doesn't stop buying. But remember, you do have to get out the other side. So you don't want to be the brand that just went quiet and everyone forgot about, and then your competitors have come out the other side and kept investing.
Yeah, I think I think the one I was referring to was an article from Mark Ritson. If you wanna read it, it was on Marketing Week. I think it was addressed to the UK market, but you can just translate it to any market.
I'll Google it after this and I'll flick it over to you, Nancy. I know Nancy. Amazing. Anything, Ashton or Alana, you want to add?
I think there is always the value in marketing, but I think, again, if you were selling the value of it, I think it's understanding who is the business, what are they trying to do, and what do the opportunities actually look like for them, some which may require investment, some may require a test budget. I'm a big one around test and learn, and this is how I would always approach working back with CFOs and founders and CEOs, etc. as well, is that, you know, ultimately, if you want to spend this amount, give me 10 or 20% of it to start it, and to show that there's actually a return on it. Obviously, it won't be the full return because you need the full investment in it. But, you know, is there an opportunity to test part of the activity we're doing, and if we do see it move the needle in whichever part of the funnel that we're trying to do, then you know, let's actually kind of, it hopefully will be self-funding, so then it won't necessarily be an additional handover of investment for the business. It then just it kind of folds into the BAU as well.
I love that. No, that's great advice. Well, thank you so much, Ashton, Stephanie, and Alana, for your time today. You know, it's only 1 hour, but it's obviously drawing on years and decades, in some cases, of experience in the marketing realm. And I know that everyone who is dialed in today or who is watching the replay would have gotten so much value. I know I have a Post-it note full of notes that I'm taking away myself. So grateful for your time. And thank you for being here and sharing with the Scrunch community.
Thank you. That was a
Thanks so
pleasure.
much.
Awesome. Have a fabulous day, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.